Hey guys, in today's video we're gonna talk melee in 2020, who would have thought? But don't worry, because I'm very hyped to show you how great it can. Alright, two warnings. First one, there is some of that in this video, and I'm gonna keep them in because there is no point in hiding them. Also, if you're wondering, second warning, the build is not very budget friendly and you're gonna see why in a bit. However, even with all those crispy skin teardowns on the character, he's capable enough to deal with content. Sure, it won't be pretty and it's going to be messy a good portion of the time, but at the end he gets the job done and that's the point of the build. As always, if you end up enjoying today's video, be sure to subscribe to the channel. The following video is going to take a bit longer because I'm gonna be having a busy schedule this week and I'm still deciding what's gonna be the next character or content. Though, if we are being honest, I may just build a magic finder because this seizure striker left my currency tab dry. So with that out of the way, let's talk about Desync strike. Flicker Strike is quite possibly my favorite skill in the game. It does one hell of a job clearing and it can have respectable single target DPS. For this build we are playing as Slayer because we're only dealing physical damage while also getting some use out of his leech, and we're gonna be using a couple of items to maximize the fun factor. Some of these items are going to scale the price of the build, but you could craft them in the end, which could save you plenty of currency. Originally, the build was gonna use the Red Trail, the Golden Rule, a Visus and Exquisite Blade with Fortify. That plan got scrapped real fast, and it was thanks to the overlap. Yeah, I had enough of that as soon as I couldn't get past the first set of traps. However, instead of throwing the towel and surrendering to frustration, I went back into POV and revealed the character using a Terminus Est, avoiding the previous uniques. This meant a good chunk of DPS disappearing, but with some compensation and skill tree rewiring, I was able to come up with the build you're about to witness. So with that being said, let's see the skill tree first, and it looks like this. And boy, this is where your currency tab is going to scream in pain and fear. The first ingredient is a Terminus Est. 6 linked, of course, but we're gonna be going the extra mile because we want one with the corrupted socketed gems are supported by level 10 Fortify implicit. Mandatory not only for the DPS but for the survivability. Anyways, the higher the feast, DPS and crit chance on the Terminus, the better. I don't recommend any other alternative because the Terminus is our way of generating frenzies, as we are technically building around it. For the body armor, I went with Exploded Chest. And what's that, you may ask? It's the rarest mod that can appear on a Crusader influenced chest piece that is at least item level 85, so you probably guessed that this is worth a pretty penny. Mine is a bit adequate, maybe below adequate, and you could skip using one altogether for the sake of budget. But I wanted one to clear maps even faster. Whatever your armor choice is, you want a lot of life and resists on it. A chest with crit chance to attacks is also a good option. For the helmet, we want a Warlord influenced helmet with the mod Global Crit Multi. We also want life and resists, and if possible accuracy or intelligence. If you can't get a Global Crit Multi, go for nearby enemies take increased physical damage from a jagged fossil. For enchantments, Flicker Strike damage per frenzy, attack speed with Blood Rage or Ancestral Protector are your best choices. For the gloves, we are using yet another Warlord influence item and we want life, resists and either cooling strike, +1 to maximum frenzy charges or melee damage. On some of the clips I am using a pair of spike gloves with cooling strike. With those I can respec Bane of Legends to impact. However, in later clips I use a pair of gloves with the extra frenzy and I use Bane of Legends with those. In my opinion, the frenzy charge is too good to pass up and should be number 1 priority. Besides that, I recommend having an open prefix to craft increased damage while leeching. For boots, 2-toned boots with plenty of life, movement speed and resists. Try to get some strength here too, just for the sake of having some extra melee damages. For enchantments, attack speed if you've killed recently, crit chance if you haven't crit, or regen if you've been hit are great choices. High movement speed is not 100% necessary as Flicker Strike does the transportation for us, but you should still get some just for quality of life. For the amulet, you want one that gives you intelligence and dexterity, and you're gonna need life, a resist global crit chance or crit multi, and physical damage to attacks with an open suffix to craft increased damage while leeching. I anointed mine with tenacity, but you could go with any other node that provides damage or defenses. One of the rings needs Assassin's Mark on a hit. Not only are the power charges handy, but since we are using a weapon that generates frenzies on crit, as Mark is best in slot for cursing. You want fizz damage to attacks, life and resists on this ring as well. The other ring needs physical damage to attacks, life, accuracy and resists. It also needs an open prefix to craft reduced mana cost, which is mandatory because Flicker eats mana, and since we have a ton of attack speed, that mana pool is going to get depleted super fast. With the reduced mana cost, we can help ourselves sustain the skill cost a little bit. Lastly, for gear comes the belt and it's a Stygian Vice with global fist damage, life and resists. I slammed mine with a Hunter Exalt and got increased maximum life. While I recommend doing the same, be warned that Hunter prefixes are shared with other less useful mods, and if you get any of those, hey, at least the base is gonna be worth something, am I right? For flasks, we are gonna be using 4 DPS flasks, mainly because movement speed is not really that important since Flicker does the walking for us. Anyways, we want a sulfur, a diamond, a silver and a lion's roar. You can ditch the sulfur for another life flask, say Blood of the Karui, but it all boils down to your personal preference. The jewel in the belt needs life and it resists fizz damage to attacks, fizz damage to sword attacks, crit chance, crit multi, attack speed or accuracy. The jewels in the tree all have increased maximum life, crit multi and generic damage multipliers for melee attacks. Alright, now we talk about the skills. On the Terminus, Flicker Strike linked to Brutality, Melee Fizz, Impale, Multi-Strike and we use Melee Splash for clear and Ruthless for single target. Remember that you want a Terminus with Fortify as this makes Flicker a 7 link. For auras, we're gonna be using Herald of Purity, Flesh and Stone, Dread Banner, Precision and an Enlighten level 3 to keep them cheap. We're also gonna be using an Ancestral Protector and Baal Ancestral Warchief linked to Maim. We also have a cast when damage taken setup with Molten Shell and increased duration. On the remaining slots we use an Ice Golem, Blood Rage and Enduring Cry. And that's it for the skills. Now, with all of that out of the way, we can talk about thoughts and opinions on the build. So let's talk about positives. The clear is nutty, the explodey chest and fast clearing speed of Flicker are gonna allow you to be sitting on the 90s pretty quick. That explodey chest is the MVP though, as you don't really have to worry about death effects, which is a huge plus to the enjoyment you're gonna get out of the character. The single target is also pretty decent, with more investment that could easily become godly. I decided to play recklessly against most of the endgame bosses, and that got me splatters here and there. With care and patience, you probably could deal with plenty of them deathless. However, melee is in a rough spot, my dudes. The difficulty changes demand either faster killing of enemies or thicker characters. In my case, I attempted the former because the latter didn't look too appealing while pre-planning. I'm still lacking plenty of damage on this character, better jewelry and a pair of spike gloves with a minimum frenzy could have been the bomb, but that didn't happen, and after spending a hefty chunk of currency on that dream, it was better to stick with the stuff I already had. Chaos resistance is another thing that I skipped, and you should do whatever you can to have at least positive chaos res. It is a necessary thing in this day and age. Lastly, prepare to die, a lot. Even with a nice chunk of Leech, Fortify, the Lion's Roar, Molten Shell and Endurance charges, some shit slaps you so hard you wake up in the Twilight Strength. Henceforth, I don't recommend the build for hardcore. In the end, I must admit that I really enjoyed the fixing the build part of the playtime with the character. I am glad I did not stick to the red trail and golden rule. However, if you do want to play with those, I recommend using a Watcher side with the mod unaffected by bleeding while affected by a malevolence, because that will make you pseudo immune to that setup's bullshit. But that's a whole different build. All in all, the character was pretty enjoyable. When he wasn't getting splattered, that is. Those difficulty changes are definitely palpable. We may talk about those at a later date, I don't know, we'll see. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed today's content. Be sure to hit the subscribe button if you haven't already, and let me know in the comments your thoughts on the character, maybe on the league itself. Anyways, thanks a lot for watching, and I hope to catch you on the next one, whenever that may be. Peace out.